Okay, so I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my collaborators. I have the privilege of working with a number of wonderful colleagues and brilliant students over the years on the work that I'm presenting. They come from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, from engineering, linguistics and modern languages, English language teaching unit, from medicine. Also, I now run the Human-Computer Communications Laboratory with Professor Xunying Liu, Andrew, and also the Ministry of Education Microsoft Key Laboratory that I serve as co-director together with Professor Frank Song of MSRA, and also the Tsinghua COHK Joint Center on Media Sciences, Technologies and Systems, and the coordinator on the Tsinghua side is Professor Zhiyong Wu. I also have collaborators from Tsinghua University and also Hong Kong Hospital Authority. So my funding support comes mainly from the Hong Kong government and the National Natural Science Foundation of China, as well as Microsoft Research Asia. So this is the outline of my talk. On learning, I will discuss how we process the learner's input and how we generate output for the learner. On well-being, I will cover assistive technologies involving speech synthesis and voice conversion, also dysalphic speech recognition and analysis. So let's start with language learning. This is fun and useful, and especially for English in Asia, where there is a severe shortage of English teachers. So technology can enable a new learning platform that is personalized, self-directed, private, round the clock, and offering visualizations that can enhance learning. It is also an interesting research problem that brings together linguistics, speech science, engineering, and pedagogy. Our focus has been on CAPT, computer-aided pronunciation training for Chinese learners of English. So pronunciation training has two aspects. First is perceptual training, where we want to train our ears primarily to discriminate between different sounds, and also productive training, which trains our articulators to pronounce the correct sounds. There was a study by Dr. Neri from Radboud back in 2006 that says that ASR-based CAPT software can potentially offer better pedagogical effectiveness than non-ASR-based counterparts. So we want to look into ASR for productive training in CAPT, and especially to discriminate between the deviants in the non-natives variant and the natives canonical pronunciations. So we want to be able to detect mispronunciations and also diagnose mispronunciations well. And we also want to use text-to-speech synthesis for perceptual training, especially to generate corrective feedback based on diagnosed errors. So on language learning, I'll first cover ASR for mispronunciation detection and diagnosis. There's a lot of effective approaches proposed previously, primarily for mispronunciation detection, including pronunciation scoring, comparison-based approaches, and phone network topologies and expansion. But what we also wish to do is to add mispronunciation diagnosis into the picture. So we started by reviewing some literature in linguistics, and first of all, we found that in 1957, Lado presented the contrastive analysis hypothesis, which says that those elements which are similar to the learner's native language will be simple for him, and those elements that are different will be difficult. Then in 1974, Coder explicitly recognized the importance of examining actual errors within a corpus of data. So what we want to do is conduct comparative, contrastive phonological analysis between Chinese and English. We want to be able to generate phonological rules, which are statements of which sounds in the second language will be replaced by sounds in the first language. Then we want to be able to generate pronunciation variants from these phonological rules so that we can obtain an extended pronunciation lexicon for ASR. So to start, we wanted to support our research and designed and collected a corpus, which is from our students, the Chinese Learners of English Chloe corpus. Basically, we want to look at L2 being English and L1, based on our student body, may be either Cantonese or Mandarin. So we have about 100 speakers in each of these subsets and about 19 hours of recording in each. So let's look at our contrastive analysis between English and Cantonese consonants. So here you can see the table of English and Cantonese consonants with the place and manner of articulation. And the consonants in pink here are those that are present in English but absent from Cantonese. So for example, you can see that English has these dental fricatives like the and the. Now similarly, for English and Mandarin consonants, we also did a similar comparison. And here are the pink ones again, are the ones that are in English but not in Mandarin. And again, there's a lack of dental fricatives. We do the same for English and Cantonese vowels. So the pink ones are those vowels in English which are absent in Cantonese, and you can see the low back vowel a, for example. And these are the ones in English but not in Mandarin, and you can see, for example, the vowel e as well. So then we go into listening to the audio. And for example, in dental fricatives, the and the, let's look at this, this word, the production of this word. This is a native production, American English. And then we look at the speech from this person from Heilongjiang.
Sick.
Okay, this is the one. So again.
Sick.
Now then we go and check this person's production of this word.
Sick.
So let's compare the two.
Sick. Sick.
And then we go back and check the native production, American English.
Sick.
So you can see there is a confusion there, okay, between sick and sick. Now let's look at the voice version, native production. Oh, this is very short. And the Hong Kong version. And we compared with this one, this word. So it sounds like the and the, they and they is not very well discriminated. Then we look at the vowels. For example, the low back vowel a. This is the native production in hot.
Cat.
And this is someone from Hong Kong.
Cult.
And we check his pronunciation for this word.
Cult.
So if you compare the two, they seem to be
Cult.
the same or very similar.
Cult.
And it's very confusable with this word, native production being
What?
Okay. And another vowel, mid-low front vowel, for native production. Oops.
Tell.
Someone from Chengdu.
Tail.
And then we check his production for this word.
Tail.
Which sounds like
Tail.
this native production. So essentially, through this analysis, we're able to come up with either manually, we have a linguistics studio working on authoring manual rules, phonological rules, or data-derived rules with this format. So basically, we can have the canonical phone being replaced by another phone, which can be an empty phone, within this phonetic context. And with this, we can generate alternative error patterns or alternative pronunciations in non-native productions, such as north can be lorth or loth or lath, and so on. And then we can use this to extend, to generate an extended recognition network and use it in recognition. And then we can align the recognized output, the phone level transcription, with the model transcription to get mispronunciation detection and diagnosis together. So this has been done previously using a finite state transducers. And the way we evaluate our performance is based on this table. We can have all the phones that are manually transcribed, and according to the person, the transcriber, we can classify the native productions into either correct or incorrect pronunciations. For those that are labeled correct by the manually, we can then compare it with the machine's output, the computer's output, and then come up with true acceptance, false rejection. And those that are mispronunciations, we can come up with false acceptance and true rejection. And then we can focus on the true rejections and look at the ability to diagnose those phonetic errors. Now we summarize this into two numbers, the detection accuracy, which is basically this addition of true acceptance and true rejection, normalized, and also diagnosis accuracy, the percentage of correct diagnosis. However, after all this work in ERN, extended recognition network generation, using about 200 rules, we were only able to achieve a detection accuracy of about 76% and a diagnosis accuracy of about 43%. So we feel that we need to do something different, okay? So when we review the ERN approach, we know that manually authored rules may not anticipate all the mispronunciations that can occur. Data-derived rules are limited to the training data, the observations in the training data. And also sometimes we have to prune the phonological rules because then our ERNs become too bushy. However, the mispronunciations that are missing from the ERN can never be detected or diagnosed. And furthermore, we actually separate the generation and the training of our acoustic models and our phonological rules, so they're independent, and then contextual information is lost. So what we feel that we need is a tighter integration between acoustic models and phonological context, leading to better phone recognition. So it is at this time that we have the onset of deep neural networks, and this is the doctoral work of my former student, Dr. Li Kun. And he started doing free phone recognition using a deep neural network and having state-level acoustic models and state transition models, and then he can formulate the target function of Viterbi decoding as such here. So this is the state acoustic models and the phone state transition models. And then also this is the diagram illustrating the Viterbi decoding. So here's the state acoustic models and the state transition models. Now if we look at the illustration for ERN, then basically we see the disjoint between the acoustic model and the phonological model. So what we want to do is to replace that with something, and eventually it became the multi-distribution DNN. And we also want to be able to provide some phonological context, so we decided that we will align the canonical productions with the signal to get a QDICT. Okay, QDICT I'll illustrate a little bit more in a moment. And so then we can get the phone state posteriors with this context, and the QDICT is actually a 7-gram, the current phone, 3 previous and 3 subsequent phones, and then we can replace the Viterbi decoding with this function. Okay, so here's more of an illustration of QDICT. So if you have a frame here, then you can look at the phonetic context, and the QDICT includes the 3 phones before and 3 phones after. So essentially, for those of us who have a lot of experiences learning a second language, when I first watched English movies a long time ago, I actually cannot catch all the words, but if there are subtitles, then I can actually catch all the phone segments in the audio. So the QDICT sort of plays that role in this process. So now we have this multi-distribution DNNs, which was originally used by my former student Xin Kang in speech synthesis, but now we use it for incorporating the acoustic features and also the QDICT to get the phone state posteriors. Okay, so now the objective function in Viterbi decoding, we replace the ERNs, which look like this, with the free phone recognition, which look like this, and now with the acoustic phonetic model, which call this the APM. Okay, and here's the results, right? So the extended recognition network was at this level of detection and diagnostics accuracy, and then free phone decoding has improvement. We see much more improvement in diagnosis accuracy, and APM is much better in both measures. And this work was published in the Transactions in January 2017. And recently, we actually started trying to improve further, so we wanted to incorporate articulatory features to provide complementary information of CF acoustic and phonological features. After all, we're talking about speech productions. So we actually referenced the work by Teckerman and Narayana, and we used the 8 streams of articulatory features, each with different cardinalities. And then with the phones, we can then generate, with the phone state, so there's a certain level of dynamics in it, we can generate this representation in terms of the articulatory feature streams. Then we apply multitask learning to the APM. So now we train not only the phone state posteriors, but we also train the class probabilities for 8 articulatory streams. Our first pilot experiments focused on the Cantonese subset of the Chloe corpus, and we found that this multitask network can actually predict the articulatory features quite well. All of these are above 90%, well above 90%. And furthermore, this is our initial set of results. The numbers are not directly comparable, but they should be a useful reference. So you can see that with the multitask APM, the detection accuracy continued to rise, and with a slight decline in the diagnosis accuracy. So this work was just published earlier this year in ICME. Now, so my former students, Dr. Li Kun and Dr. Li Fa Xu, they actually went ahead and founded SpeechX. Actually, you may wish to visit the SpeechX booth here, S9, and this is the, so they have integrated some of the work into WeChat, and so this is a demo based on WeChat. So now you can actually do phone-based training.
Seed.
Okay, so the learner was not doing too well at first, and we tried.
Sit.
Okay, a bit better.
He goes to school on foot.
So there are 8 exercises based on
He
sentences.
goes to school on foot.
And then it comes back with the score.
I would like a piece of stick. I do not have the answer.
So the user doesn't need to finish the entire exercise, but may wish to get a report of how she does so far. And you can see all the
Stick.
diagnosed mispronunciations that hopefully can be conducive to what's improvement. There's also the prosody component.
Prosody.
So we also have some publications in the suprasegmental level.
Prosody.
And for word stress here.
Prosody.
So I will refer you to our papers because I don't have enough time to go through the details. Okay, so now instead I wish to move on to the output side, generating corrective feedback for the learner. So the objectives here is to provide corrective feedback based on the diagnosed mispronunciations to highlight the differences between the correct pronunciation and the learner's variant. So we want to do bimodal synthesis to enhance perception. Essentially, we want to generate exaggerated or hyper-articulated speech. So we first start with visual speech synthesis because we want to do bimodal. And the way we do it is we use a text-to-speech synthesizer with the phoneme sequence and also the timing information. And we actually have these sketches of the different Vizine components which correspond to the different articulators, articulatory organs. So according to the phones, we have the target frames for every articulator. And when we have the missing key frames, then we just use interpolation and generate and fill in all the frames. Then we put all these frames together, and then you can see the entire Vizine being generated. So just to illustrate, we use a Vizine blending technique. So for example, I pick the diphthong owl because it has the transition from a to u. And so if you start with the Vizine, and this is over time, okay, so if you start, then the Vizine looks like this, and you go into the peak region of the a, and then you start to blend with the u, and then here's the peak region of the u, and then it will blend with the next phoneme. So this is how we do visual speech synthesis, but we want to do exaggeration as well. So this was a paper we published in ICASS 2013. So we build extra levels of exaggeration. So as you can see, we select certain articulatory features that are much more visible, the open, round, and bilabial features, and we create extra levels of movement range. And furthermore, for exaggeration, we want the Vizine to stay in the peak level for a longer period of time. So therefore, we move to a cosine function in the blending. So whereas in the non-exaggerated regions, we'll continue to use linear blending. So here's the outcome. So for example, if you look at the word farmer, so the neutral rendition looks like this.
Farmer,
Okay, again.
farmer,
And the exaggerated version looks like this.
farmer, farmer, farmer,
Okay, so if you want to look at shoes, then the neutral version looks like this.
shoes, shoes, shoes,
And the exaggerated version looks like this.
shoes, shoes, shoes.
Okay, so that's how we do visual speech synthesis. Now next we want to do audio exaggeration, emphatic speech synthesis. This is where we need to analyze the prosodic differences between neutral and emphatic counterparts. So what we did was to classify phones based on their position relative to the stress syllable in the emphasized word. So we have 6 classes. We look at the phones in the stress syllable of the emphasized word before that or after that. And we also look at phones in the word before the emphasized word or after. Okay, and then class 6 is all the other phones. Now, the challenge in emphatic speech synthesis is data sparsity because generally, you don't have emphatic speech all the time, and even if you have an utterance of emphatic speech, you only have a very few segments which are emphasized. So to this end, we've devised 2 approaches for emphatic speech synthesis. One is HMM-based perturbation, and the other is end-to-end. Now, for HMM-based perturbation model, basically what we did was to construct a general decision tree using a neutral corpus, which we have a lot more data, and general questions that are not related to emphasis. Then we try to grow the tree leaves with phones from the emphatic speech corpus, which we collected, and classify them according to the emphasis-related questions. Then in HMM selection, we devised a cost function based on F0 and duration statistics to select the HMMs. And in the case of sparse data or missing data, where we need to substitute for the desired emphatic category with the closest approximation, we also incorporated a compensation model using based on F0 and duration. And so this is what the HMM-based perturbation model sounds like for it is a table.
It is a table. It is a table.
Okay. Then we moved on to end-to-end framework. So this work is just published earlier this year, led by Dr. Jiong Wu. So the challenge is that we want to relax the requirement of paired, neutral, and emphatic speech recordings for the speaker. And we also want to seek to enable control of different emphasis levels. So we have a small corpus of neutral and emphatic recordings from the source speaker, which is about 700 utterances. And the emphasis-related acoustic differences are modeled by the decoder and the attention module, corresponding to the emphasis-related linguistic differences captured in the encoder memory. And the speaker-related acoustic differences can then be modeled by the decoder and attention module with the aid of speaker embedding codes. And with this design, the emphasis-related acoustic differences can be transferred from the speaker S, the source speaker, into the speaker L, the learner, so that we can generate emphatic speech with speaker L's voice given emphatic character sequence input. So basically, during synthesis, then what we did is to have the emphasis strength control take effect by tuning the encoder memory with an interpolation factor, and that factor is fed into the re-represented memory, which is then fed into the attention module. So this is where you can see the interpolation takes place, okay? And I want to first play for you the recordings from speaker S, the source speaker. So these are contrastive, neutral, and emphasized recordings for the input text, where we want to emphasize candidates and consolidate those 2 words. So this is a neutral recording.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
And this is the emphasized recording.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
So now with emphasis level control, we can have this alpha that we can tune. And this is a synthesizer generated based on the Nancy corpus from Blizzard Challenge. So this is, I'm going to play for you the leftmost one, which is where alpha is set to 0.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
And this is for alpha at 0.4.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
And then alpha at 0.8.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
And alpha at 1.0.
A number of candidates have consolidated their accommodation with investigation and appreciation.
So just to verify what we are doing, during testing, we also examined the encoder memory, the activation value of the encoder memory's difference between the emphatic memory and the neutral memory. And we find that by and large they correspond sort of to our manually defined, the 6 classes that have been manually defined, right? So I illustrate them in red. So we want to further conduct research in this area for emphatic speech synthesis. Now, this is actually a demo of a system. Basically, we try to integrate different versions of those components that are presented in our lab. So a student can type in a sentence that he wishes to practice on,
Wave is rising.
and then speak that. And then the system comes back with a diagnosis, so flagging the errors in red, and the student can then
Wave.
select individual words
Rain.
and compare the model's production with his own production, and then look at the visual feedback, I
Rain.
should say bimodal feedback of that word. Now this is a side project. I figured it might be fun to include. This is actually a undergraduate bachelor's thesis project by Wang Hao. It's called Music Speak. This is where we want to help our learners acquire stress time rhythm in English, which is rather different from syllable time rhythm in Chinese. So the idea is very simple. The learner can first type in any sentence in English, and then the system just comes back with a beat.
She opened the book in the box of tools.
So the learner can then follow the beat and practice. And here's another sentence as an example.
I suppose that I was hoping to prove them all wrong.
So then the student actually engaged some of his classmates and asked his classmates to record a sentence before.
I suppose that I was hoping to prove them all.
And then each student then practiced 5 times with the rhythm, and this is what they ended with.
I suppose that I was hoping to prove them all wrong.
So basically it's a fun project. Actually, Wang Hao has, this was his bachelor's thesis project. He has recently graduated with a PhD, not on this topic though, and he's working on Alibaba in Singapore. So I'm done with our work, presenting our work on language learning, and I would wish to now move to well-being. So we actually got into well-being not too long ago because of a need in Hong Kong for AAC, augmentative and alternative communication. So our hospital authority has been working on this, and according to our census department, it was found that nearly 5,000 people in Hong Kong have speech difficulty, and over 40% of that have no verbal communication at all. So the hospital authority has published this traditional communication book. Okay, so I'm going to play for you what this book looks like. So it has indices on the right and with different categories, and in each category there will be different pictures showing the items in that category. Now the limitations of this, as you can see, this book is published on laminated paper, it's difficult to personalize, it's expensive to print and distribute. So there was a need for us to help to develop the e-version of the communication book. So what we want to do is to use the iPad or a smart tablet to personalize the content and layout. And we also inject our own homegrown Cantonese text-to-speech synthesis technology into the book. And then we also collaborated with Microsoft and injected and incorporated the Microsoft Cognitive Services. So now the e-commu book can work for 20 plus gender-specific accented voices. So this is our implementation of the e-commu book. So you can see that we try to preserve all the affordances of the paper version with the categories and the items. And the user can also personalize. So adding, just easily adding a picture and adding a description of the picture, and then it will go to our TTS in the cloud and come back with a page, the addition, and then from then on, the user can select it. So there are also other features that allow the user to customize the book based on his or her needs. Okay, so what we want to do then is to be able to personalize the book, especially using the voice characteristics of the user. So here, in fact, we can also do the same thing for language learning systems. In the corrective feedback we generate, especially on the audio side, we can also use voice conversion to convert it into the learner's voice color. So this also applies to language learning as well. But now I wish to talk about it in the context of AAC. So basically, voice conversion, as many of you know already, is to modify the speech signal uttered by a source speaker to sound as if it was uttered by a target speaker. So the traditional approach is really to learn this feature mapping, this function f, from a line parallel data. And in ICAS 2015, my former student, Dr. Li Fa-Xin, he published a paper that used deep bidirectional long short-term memory based on recurrent neural networks for the task. And it worked reasonably well. However, parallel data is often unavailable. So what do we do? So later, in the following year, Li Fa published another paper where he used phonetic posteriograms to offer a speaker-normalized representation of the articulation of sounds so that it serves as a very good bridge between the source and target speaker's recordings. So this mitigates the need for parallel data and achieves cross-gender and cross-language voice conversion. So the system is illustrated here, and I want to play for you some of the outputs of the system. So if you look at the table, the first row, call an ambulance for medical assistance. I serve as a source, so this is my recording.
Call an ambulance for medical assistance.
So we got some speech data from the target speaker.
重新归零，然后从头开始。
Okay, and this is the conversion output.
Call an ambulance for medical assistance.
Okay, so just to give you a sense of how it sounds for cross-gender, this is Li Fa.
Hello， 你好，我是玲玲。
Again, we have the target.
重新归零，然后从头开始。
And this is the conversion output.
Hello, 你好，我是玲玲。
Okay, so this is the PPG approach for voice conversion. Now, this is okay if we were doing language learning. However, if we want to serve the people with speech disorders, oftentimes it's very difficult to get a lot of data from them. And so we needed to reduce the need for data in our approach. And this is a paper that Song Xiangyu, my student, just presented here in InterSpeech 2018 a few days ago. So this is where his approach actually adds speaker embedding into the picture. So this is a multi-speaker voice conversion model that you can borrow other speakers' recordings, and also you train up a speaker embedding. And then using the speaker embedding, you can also train up a speaker encoder. So when you actually come to the need for a voice conversion for a target speaker for whom you only have very little data, such as a single target speaker utterance, then you can feed that into the speaker encoder to get the speaker embedding, and that speaker embedding can enrich the mapping to generate the target speech for conversion. So just to play for you the output of this approach. So let's say we want to synthesize someone counting. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have the source, that sounds like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Okay, so this can be synthesized. But let's say we have a target, and this target is a disaphoric speaker.
飞买手把胡马不陪爬。
So we only have one utterance from the disaphoric speaker, especially because it takes them a lot of effort to speak an utterance. So then we can convert any source recording into to carry the voice color of this speaker.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so this is the status of the voice conversion work here. Now, again, on well-being, I want to move on to disaphoric speech recognition. I already talked a little bit about dysarthria. It is a speech disorder associated with neuromotor conditions and many possible causes such as stroke, cerebral palsy, Huntington's disease. And basically, it affects speech intelligibility, such as imprecise articulation, hoarse phonation, improper prosody, lengthening and slow speaking rates, excessive nasalization, etc. So we want to build desophoric ASR as an assistive technology to help communication. In fact, one of our plan is this is together with Professor Andrew Liu, my colleague. Our plan is, if we are able to do a good job recognizing desophoric speech well, then we can figure out what the subject wishes to say, and then we can synthesize with normal speech, and then we can convert the synthetic outputs to carry the voice color of the subject. So this is our plan. But we're really new to this work, and so we have been following the work at Sheffield, Heidi Christensen's papers and her colleagues. And so over the years, we were also trying to conduct experiments using UA speech, and I thank Mark Hasegawa-Johnson for that, providing us with that data. And so we actually published a paper at this conference where Jianwei Yu, he was able to use the following technique to reduce the word error rate to 30.6%, which is about a 12% relative improvement over the best published result from a few years back, 2015. And so the technique we use is actually rather standard. It's stacked DNN, where we have bottleneck features. We have bottleneck features, and these feed into the stacked hybrid system, and we can actually swap in different kinds of DNNs here, and you can see the different kinds of DNNs on the table with the different word areas. Okay. Now, then we further apply cross-adaptation, and this is where we want to bring in other normal speech. So we want to bring in switchboard or broadcast news. And so the bottleneck features go through NLLR for cross-adaptation. And you can see that with cross-adaptation, the word error rate actually can make a very good improvement. Then we put everything into the pot. So this is the system combination result. And eventually we got 30.6% word error rate. And so this is English desophoric speech, but we actually do want to work on Cantonese or Chinese desophoric speech. So we have begun to design a desophoric speech corpus, and we started collecting it and did some initial work on it. We work with patients' associations, we work with our colleagues or speech therapists in the Hong Kong Hospital Authority. And also we reference the French desophoric assessment test in designing our Cantonese desophoric speech corpus, which we call CODIS. And furthermore, we have done some initial research in articulation, in studying articulation, and we referenced the distinct feature articulation, which was from Professor Kenneth Stevens. And basically for our corpus, we invite some linguistic students to label the phone, so that from this we will be able to tell for what kinds of distinctive features the subject has made errors in the desophoric production. And furthermore, we have built distinctive feature detectors using multi-layer perceptrons, and these can automatically come up with the distinctive feature errors also from the desophoric productions. Now, generally, we find that the error flagged by the MLP is much greater than the error coming from the human labeling. And a lot of the times it's because the desophoric production has a very weak production, and so the human does not cannot really hear it, but the detectors are able to detect it, and so that those count as substitution errors in terms of the distinctive feature errors. But in general, we find that the errors flagged by the MLP correlates well with the errors coming from the human label, so at a correlation level of 0.87. And furthermore, we can also examine for each subject the whole spectrum of DF errors, the distinctive feature errors. So here S014, male, he has a lower intelligibility, whereas S003 has a higher intelligibility. And in general, you can see that the error rates are different. And in fact, we believe that being able to flag these can indicate the articulatory characteristics that are more problematic for individual speakers, and this may inform our speech therapists in the design of intervention exercises. So that's a summary of our work so far along the lines of well-being. We have some other ongoing work which are not directly related to speech. One is more on language than speech. This is a collaboration with my colleague in public health. And this is where we actually look at language, how to better use Twitter to find a person who got lost due to dementia. And in particular, we were studying features of Twitter messages that can lead to successful search of this lost demented person. And also, our work with our geriatricians, we published a paper at KDD earlier this year where we tried to predict Alzheimer's disease with actigraphy data. So actigraphy is a watch that can actually register daily activities, motions and especially. And we have over 1,000 elderly subjects wearing this actigraphy for a period. And using that data, so based on the activity, we were able to generate circadian rhythms. And because these are also patients of our, in our medical school, in our teaching hospital, we actually know from our colleagues in the Faculty of Medicine which of these subjects are normal and which of these subjects suffer from perhaps early cognitive impairment. So the point is that we want to be able to perform early detection of Alzheimer's based on the circadian rhythm. And we did, and the results using attention-based deep learning for time series classification actually shows that this is a very promising approach. So my hope is that we can collect not only just physical activity data, but hopefully also speech activity data for detection of early cognitive impairment so that intervention strategies can be introduced earlier rather than too late. So that was a rather fast presentation, a high speaking rate. So I'm actually now on my last slide. So here I just want to share with you the optimist in me. I feel that we're now at the golden age of speech research. And as speech researchers, I think our training actually empowers us to leverage our ability to understand this very magical signal for human communication. We can leverage our ability to devise powerful algorithms and architectures, our availability of powerful computing and massive storage resources, and leverage our insights in various application contexts, especially through collaborations, to devise fit-for-purpose data, approaches, and solutions. And also, hopefully, leverage strong partnerships between academia, industry, and obviously also the government. And we hope to be able to enhance learning, health, well-being, social inclusion, etc., and make our world a better place. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meng, for an interesting talk in a very vast scope, packed into a rather short space of time. Since we have ample time for questions, I'd like to invite the audience to raise any questions they have. Professor Meng.
Thank you for the talk. I would like to know what are the open research issues in the field of voice conversions. Like I remember prosody is one such issue, but other issues that you feel are very important in voice conversion.
Yeah, I think in voice conversion, the most important thing is to be able to convert from any speaker to any speaker. And apparently, with our existing techniques, if you want to do that, we rely a lot on the data. But the data of this exact matching context is not easily available when we actually want to target specific situations. So what we want to do, the open question, what we should do as a community is to be able to devise approaches that can generalize better. And I think PPG offers a glimpse of that because it actually comes out with a speaker normalized space and therefore it's also, it can easily cross languages and cross gender. And I think that's one of the directions for voice conversion.
And how about the prosody?
Yeah, definitely the prosody. So far we haven't done too much on prosody, and most definitely prosody. Yeah, that's a very good
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I have a number of colleagues, Chinese speaking. I would like them to improve their pronunciation in English. So what would you recommend that I do? Or what would they do today? What is available?
Well, please visit SpeechX booth. Well, actually, we have a booth, the startup, SpeechX. So I think most importantly is immersive, constant practice and being able to build a system that provides appropriate feedback and help them learn. And I think being able to assess, help the learner identify, the problematic segments and how to help them visualize how to improve and where they're, the trajectory of learning or practicing that they're moving. I think being able to continuously track that will be very important, aside from just plain diligence. I think that's very important what the technology can offer, whereas the human teacher can get tired. I think the technology today cannot match a good human teacher, but the technology never gets tired. It's 24/7. So I think constant practice and being able to develop technologies that can track the learner's progress very closely and be able to offer useful feedback. That's the key. Thank you, John.
Hello. You were talking about dysartic speech, and I would like to know, when a dysartic person is speaking, they normally produce a single word. It could be faster or shorter than a regular speaker. How can we be sure that the boundaries of a certain phoneme are correctly compared? Because you were comparing a correctly pronounced phoneme with a non-correctly pronounced phoneme. But when you are talking about dysarthric person, they can produce the same word, but taking, let's say, 20 or 30% of the time longer than a regular person. So to detect that those boundaries can be difficult.
Yes, that's a very good point. In fact, we don't have a good handle on that. If you look at our ICAST paper, I think it's 3 years ago, we actually tried to address exactly that problem using some grammars in adjusting the alignment. So we actually tried to use some rules to allow adjustment based on the duration. But I don't think that's a very generalizable solution. So that's a very good point. We present one solution, but I don't think it's the best solution, and we need to improve upon that. Thank you.
How do you differentiate the detection and diagnosis of mispronunciation?
Okay, thank you. So detection is just to say it's a binary decision. Yes, is it correct, or no, it's not correct. And diagnosis is where we want to say, if it's considered a mispronunciation, what has the learner produced? And how does it differ from the canonical? So that will be the distinction. Thank you. That's actually an important distinction to know. Yeah.
Envisioning perfect speaker conversion also raises some ethical questions about the limitation of use. So, are you aware of a discussion in that direction, and what's your personal view?
So that's also a wonderful question, because that is a project proposal that I recently submitted. So in fact, as you know, I started working on voice conversion because we were motivated to personalize assistive technologies. However, we were approached by the Applied Science and Technology Research Institute and the Hong Kong government. They were asking us about how, to what extent our technologies can impersonate and being able to break into speaker verification systems. And so far, in our initial study, we have found that if you look for impersonation by the human, let's say, I don't know who's a good impersonator, but for humans looking at a human impersonation, you feel that, oh, they're doing a very good job in impersonation. But that attack actually generally cannot penetrate speaker verification systems. Okay. However, because of the recent voice conversion techniques, we have found that even though a converted voice does not sound very close to the target speaker, to the human, some of it is actually able to penetrate speaker verification. So machine perception is very different from human perception. And so we need to work on anti-spoofing technology So on the one hand, we are working on the sword, and on the other hand, we're working on the shield. So that will be an interesting development in our lab on this. Thank you.
I have a question. You talked about being able to synthesize what you call hyperarticulated speech. And there used to be a notion of what is called clear speech, where people have essentially used formant position shifting to create clear speech from normal speech, particularly for infant-directed speech kind of thing. So do you see scope for creating hyperarticulated speech from normal speech, which might enhance ASR systems? Because hyperarticulated speech has better classifiability and all the targets are reached and so on. Do you see it as a possible potential pre-processing before ASR systems can probably take the speech signal?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I think what you are, your question actually touches on a much more profound understanding of hyperarticulated speech, which we currently don't have. Our objective so far is perhaps much less demanding, because my objective is really to catch the attention of the learner to highlighted segments that contain this pronunciation. Of course, if we want to do a very good job in hyperarticulated speech, we actually need to know the detailed dynamics of the articulators, especially if you're talking about relevant hyperarticulation for automatic speech recognition. I think that's a much higher requirement in the application that you are presenting than currently. I guess we have lower goals right now, because our goal is perhaps to catch the attention of the learner, and more so. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. So your L2 speaker speaking learning English part was very interesting. So I was wondering if some phonemes are not present in L2 speaker. It is very easy to learn from it because, for example, consonants, it has very distinct kind of articulatory features. But what about the vowels? So I feel like the vowels are not exactly same if it sounds similar. So, I mean, there are some kind of tongue position, and then the L2 and L1 speaker are totally different, even if it sounds similar. So how would you elaborate this kind of problem?
Yeah, very good point. So that actually points at a more a problem that we're currently looking into, because the L2 space, or the L2 space compared to the L1 space, is quite different. And if you think of, although English may be my target language, but Chinese accented English actually looks at English in this L2 space, where the categories, the phonetic categories, if you will, that are in L1 are pretty much all distorted to some extent. So relating to your question, there are distortions that are, or deviances that are bigger, there are deviances that are smaller. And so we call those, in our lab, I have a student working on it, we call those non-categorical errors. Like, you can have a segment, I can't tell whether it's this phone or that phone. I can't even label it. I mean, a common example may be V and W for Cantonese speakers, or R and L. Like, you can hear a sound and you can't say, well, this is R. If you ask, we try to ask several linguistics majors, and they will all give us different, if you force them to make a decision, it almost becomes random. So we call those non-categorical units, and we need to be able to identify those so that we can better model the L2 space, and then it will help us to pinpoint any deviations and hopefully position us better in corrective feedback generation. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Hello. I was quite impressed with your tools for learning, helping Chinese learn English. But I was wondering if there's a lot of effort, if this effort can also be used to get Chinese, because we do have problems getting mastering Chinese.
Yes. It is a lot of effort to do it one way, Chinese learners of English, and I'm sure for learners of Chinese, a lot of the knowledge and the experiences that we have gained through our research will be applicable, but we have to turn it all around. Yeah. I mean, for example, our target for the English phonetic system will not have to be shifted to the Chinese syllabic system. But I think a lot of what we have learned is generalizable, but it will require engineering work. Thank you.
Hi, sorry for my voice. I'm working on this kind of on karaoke, if you know. So the idea is really to provide enhanced display, not only enhanced conversation. So I think it's very important for prosody, for example. But are you planning to work on enhanced display, so to be able to pinpoint by the text, highlighting part of the text as the tutor somehow give the example to be reproduced by the trainee, so to enhance not only the speech but also the text.
Yes. So your question actually touches upon pedagogically a most important aspect, which as a speech researcher we've been so far focusing largely on the technology. But pedagogy, I mean, that goes back to my last slide. I think we have done a lot of work on the technological front, but we actually need to reach out and look into the translation to pedagogy. And I think the visualization and how to visualize, what techniques, what are the technologies that are needed for better visualization. Going back to John's question, how can we very tightly track the progress of the learner as he or she improves? I think that's a very important direction to move, and we haven't done much in that area yet. Thank you.
Well, if there are no further questions, we are getting to the end of the hour. So let's once again thank Dr. Helen